Well, if you love dark comedy, intriguing fantasy worlds, and romance with a twist of danger, then you're in for a treat. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Otome.com podcast. I'm Sweet Pixel, your trusted companion in the world of Otome games.
And I'm Lover's Lens. Today we'll be exploring Bewitching Sinners with the help of the developer behind the game Misc. Thank you so much for joining us today and finding the time to chat with us about the game. Would you please tell us what your role in this project was?
Happy to. Also, hello everyone, and thank you for having me on this podcast, Sweet Pixel and Lovers Lens. Thank you so much. I'm Saro. I'm the sole developer and creator of Bewitching Sinners. I do the coding, writing, art, and everything in between, basically, because I'm the sole creator. Using all my past experiences as a worker in the webtoon industry and also a data analyst long time ago. So basically, those skills help me in the gaming community.
Oh my god, that explains all of the beautiful, stunning art we saw in Bewitching Sinners. So that was an interesting thing to find out about your background. I am excited to dive into the world of the game. The story had me literally on the edge of my seat the whole time, pulling the rug from under my feet when I least expected it. I managed to take a glimpse into it because it really did feel like a very rich world and a big story with a lot of art. And I'm sure that our listeners would love to hear about what sort of story Bewitching Sinners is. Can you give us a summary of the game, please?
Sure. Bewitching Sinners is an amare fantasy isekai themed visual novel, which followed the story of Palmir, the main character you play as, which can be a girl or a boy or anything in between, depends on your choice. And they get sucked into a whole new world full of witch hunters, witches, vamps, fairies, and all fantasy creatures you might be familiar with in the story when you grow up as a kid. But the difference is this one has a bit of a twist, as they might not be as morally sound as you're used to. Speaking of low morals, the reason you got pulled into that world is because a witch hunter named Quill, one of the bachelors, who induced that world's Palmir into a coma. And basically, you need to pretend as them as a student in the witch hunting school to cover for Quill, while also finding ways to wake them up. A feat that usually deals with the encounters with some very attractive but also very deadly witches.
So, as you mentioned, the game throws the protagonist into a world of witches, danger, romance, and a kind of a super complex multiverse. What exactly inspired you to create this kind of setting?
So I don't play a lot of visual novel games, to be honest, but the ones I do play or know are usually set in either a fantasy setting from the start or daily life. So I don't know how much English available visual novels that have a lot of isekai theme. So I wanted to be kind of like, this is my contribution because of webtoons. Isekai is very, very overused and very, very popular. But I wanted to see what happens if it's put in a visual novel format. Also, if we have another version of us dually working or dually inside that isekai world. So I think the duality of having both characters in the game or in the setting is kind of rare. And it's even rarer for a romance themed isekai to want to go back to their original world. So I really want to experiment with those concepts and elements, as those kind of themes and elements, plot points are kind of usually shot down. So it's just basically me. I kind of want to screw my editor in the office and be like, I can make this work in the visual novel setting.
Definitely. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I just wanted to comment that it's definitely rare and I really enjoy that kind of stories. So thank you for taking this approach on the visual novel side of stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say thank you for your contribution as well. Basically what Lover's Land said. You mentioned that you do get sucked into this other world. Is it okay to call it a parallel world to our world sort of thing?
I think I could, yeah. I think it's fine to say it a parallel or alternate, because it's kind of like similar. They still have a base of the world is kind of like on Christianity culture, but we make it more magical. Basically, the god in that world is my version of Saint Maria. And kind of like I can't tell you who's the Jesus yet, but it will make sense later on in the sequel.
Okay, I see. Well, apart from this difference in the two worlds, would you say there are any other major differences that set this fantasy world apart from the one that Palmyr comes from? The first Palmyr, sorry, that we are introduced to.
I think the most is actually, well, of course, the obvious one is the existence of magic and stuff, right? So because they have runes in place of technology, basically all of their technological advances is replaced by runes like ink that can call upon magic and such. But I think the second easy to spot the difference is the race or creatures, because I have like I don't have humans more of the dominant species. They're very minor. All of the other islands and sections are all either vampires, fairies, sirens. Also with the twist, that's not common. They might be a bit more morally low. I really want to show that the Bewitching Sinners world has a very, very low set of morals, and kindness is very rare to see due to their world basically has this kind of like prey or be preyed upon mentality. So you will definitely be a bit surprised when you talk with NPCs exploring the world and such and getting to know the bachelors, because they're usually unfamiliar or surprised by what we call common courtesy. And they have a really violent way of thinking sometimes, which cause a lot of funny mishaps and misunderstandings.
I see. I guess that's why I did actually change my approach to the way I behave in my answers. So, judging by what I was reading, the Palmyr from the fantasy world was way more, maybe had a front, so to speak,
Mhm.
you know, and I think I was going for softer responses, but then I felt that as time went on in this world, I did change my responses to them being a bit more aggressive or just,
Crass, yeah.
straightforward. Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. So I think I definitely felt what you mentioned there.
Same here. I was trying to fit, like, in the shoes of the other main character. So, yeah, I had to be an asshole
It's
during the
actually,
conversations.
yeah, this game actually, I don't know, kind of like, I won't say rewards you, but kind of rewards you for being an asshole, because I want it to be like, a fantasy world and like a Dululu world where you can be just as horrible as you can and somehow people accept you either way. I think that's fun.
It is definitely, it gives you the chance to be an asshole because you don't have the chance to be an asshole in real life, you know? Just exploring this a little bit. I wanted to ask you something about the technology they're using. So, there was something about the phones I noticed when Quill sent us to take ink bottles. He was like, "You can send them over the phone," and I found that very interesting.
Yeah, so they have like teleportation runes. So when the phones are, they don't have any electricity. So in my imagination, when you open up the phone, it's just a bunch of crystals, which has a lot of like magical runes on them, and each magical rune does the same different things. And one of them is a teleportation rune. So it's rune teleportation rune. So every time you want to send something, they can just like, okay, go ahead, because they have a little bit of a weird technology. They have phones, but the internet, or like at least the social media aspect of it, is kind of like lacking. And TVs or planes, they don't really understand that, but they have teleportation. They have like their own kind of like, when you want to have a heater or to have something cold, just use a rune instead of using electricity. So that's the differences. They don't have planes or anything like that. That's why if you bring Quill to your world, for example, he would actually question the planes and the noises the cars make because he's so foreign to that.
That's funny. I like it.
Now, since we talked a bit about the story, I think that it's time for us to move on to the love interests. They're, to me, at least, they're kind of like a selection of expensive and delicious looking trees. Not sure how anyone is supposed to pick. Honestly, I had a difficult time doing so. This story has 4 dateable characters or bachelors, as you mentioned, each with their unique personality. How did you decide on these specific character archetypes?
So For the main trio, the twin trio I like to call them, Arshem, Thane, and Quill, they were basically all based on my own friends and friend dynamic group. Their dynamic and mannerism is basically how me and my friend group behaves, minus the murder plans, of course. But I did change a little bit of their quirks to fit what I call the webtoon male lead stereotypes. Like we have the slick back black hair Arshem with his, possessive trait and somehow very capable in everything he does. Then there's Quill, who is the rich hair kind of brat that you usually find more in BLs than female oriented romances. And then there's Thane, which is an odd mix of golden retriever type male lead and the dangerous vampire or red flag coded male lead, which is a real fun combo to make. And then there was Lylle, who's basically just a cinnamon roll because I needed something to balance out the spiciness of the crew. Everyone's so spicy and tart, he needs someone sweet to balance this out.
Great call, great call. I support that. I think that's a great thing to balance it out, just as you said. I think that ultimately towards the end, Lylle was definitely my favorite because I found comfort in him. I am a softer personality, so this world did feel a bit scary at times, and I kind of found comfort in that character a lot in Lylle. It would be nice if we could go a bit more into detail in each character. So I would like to start off with Quill first because he's the first one we meet. Some of the fans have noticed that he seems to have a more complex and layered relationship with Bomir compared to the others. Do you agree with that, or would you say that that's not the case?
To be honest, I actually think that Quill is the most straightforward in the relationship, actually. Because he knew from the start that you're not his Palmyr, you're not his BFF or childhood friend. He thinks you're the sap that he's kind of using to cover his ass. But as you two bond and learn more about each other, he can finally put down his many facades that he needed to put up to survive in his world and maintain his, kind of like rich royal status, so to speak. So I think those facades is what make him seem more complex than he really is. But personally, I think his dynamic with the MC is the most straightforward and candid of all bachelors, actually.
That explains a lot. Like, to me, Quill was the best character because he was so just enters the conversation, gets to the point. There's no fluff and pluff and stuff like that to cover everything. So I felt him very close to me. So I liked him very much. But I also like Thane.
Yeah.
And he is the second love interest we get to meet in the game.
Mhm.
And to me, he felt like a happy-go-lucky kind of character, but with a twist, as you mentioned. How this dangerous vampire persona sort of thing. What was the thought process behind crafting his personality and backstory?
So Thane was actually very interesting because during the demo, a test player of mine said that he was really bland compared to the other characters who had very apparent quirks and strong personalities. Even Lylle has a very soft but clear self-personality. So originally Thane was just supposed to be pure sunshine, pure golden retriever, but that kind of got washed out with how heavy the life baggages of the other bachelors has. So I had to think of making him more interesting, and so I thought long and hard about his background, like why is he here in Ignia, a human nation, instead of his own nation in Vortex? Why is he allowed into school as the only vampire student? Why doesn't he attack humans and rely on rat blood, etc.? And that led me to summing him up as what would happen if someone who really, really doesn't fit with the vampire lifestyle is a vampire? So will they be kind or, try to be kind? Or will their nature to be cruel will, topple over that yearning to be one with the community and such? And that helped a lot, actually, to making him a lot more fleshed out. And he's an odd combo of trauma and joy, at least that's my point of view. He really wants
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, like that. He really wants to be this happy-go-lucky social boy, but he's also has this insatiable thirst for blood and his nature as a predator to the humankind, so it really becomes a hurdle for him to just get along with others.
I found this dynamic, not dynamic, this contrast in him very, very nice. Like, I love that. And yeah, he's such a nice character. And we shouldn't leave out Arshem, and we need to talk a little bit about him now. He is the third love interest we meet, and in the story, we notice that they have quite a history with the main character. Like, he's all acting flirty, but at the same time protective toward the main character. And it seems like their relationship is very unpredictable and exciting, but still there's some underlying depth to his character that hints at something more valuable and vulnerable. How did you craft the emotional progression between him and the main character, and what do you think makes their bond unique compared to the other love interests?
So for Arshem, I really wanted to have an ex as a love interest because I also think that's quite a rare concept for Otome games that I've seen, at least. So for those who haven't played Bewitching Sinners, Arshem is the ex of the Ignia version Palmier, or the alternate version, the one you have to replace, so to speak. But when you come to their world, Arshem still thinks you're his Palmier. So he behaves somewhat like an ex that is trying to win you back for the first act of the game. Then when you finally admit everything, you can see the real him, which is basically a man who is very selfless in his love, but never has received the unconditional love he constantly gives. But I don't know, maybe you can change that if you want. That transition from lovers to enemies, then enemies to friends or lovers, depending on how you play, which kind of like makes his route a lot more dynamic than the others. I think that's why a lot of people like his character more than others. Some even consider him as the canon love interest, so to say, which honestly is depending on the player's interpretation, at least for now. I will talk a little bit about that in, our talk about the upcoming projects. A little surprise there.
It was interesting to me that he was occasionally kind of like the mom
Yeah.
in the group. That was interesting because when I first saw him, he was practicing on the field and he was using fire magic. And then, the pose and his style, and he just looked like a very like the bad boy sort of type. But then when I saw how caring he is towards others, and that he's the one that was calming Lylle down at some point, or just those gestures like these. And I think Thane mentioned, or was it Quill, that he's kind of like, oh, him, he's kind of like the mom of the group. I was so surprised because I was like, really, that is interesting. I definitely didn't have that first impression, but over time, once I got to know that about him, I softened up towards him
He has a
personally.
very like bad boy image, that is true. And originally I did kind of want him to go through that route, but when I write him, becomes very soft and mature. So I don't know what happened there either, but it happened, and I'm happy with it.
I think that it was definitely interesting, as you mentioned, that not a lot of games do this where you have an X in the story. And immediately I wanted to know, oh, what's the history there? Oh, what happened? How did we start dating? How did we break up? Why did we break up? It definitely straight off the bat gets you interested, and you just want to know more in case you're happy with what you figure out. Then maybe you'll consider to try to become friends or lovers, as you mentioned again. I definitely liked that one. But of course, I mean, Lylle. Lylle, best boy. I would love to go back to him once more. His story arc feels deeply emotional. He just feels like a deeply emotional character. And he carries what I feel is a lot of unspoken weight. What do you think is the most misunderstood aspect of Lylle? And is there some sort of detail about him that players might not have picked up on?
So I think that a lot of people misunderstood Lyle in the aspect of he's actually more loved than people think, but we can't see it unless we understood his dad's, Ivor side of the story. I really want players to experience Lyle's arc themselves, so I don't want to spoil too much, but to me, Lyle is the glimpse of what every witch goes through, which pure blood or half blood witch, etc. And it's basically a very lonely and isolated life. But there is love amongst their own kind, or at least the need to protect and nurture their youngs to, have the strength to survive in a world that is fully against them and will actively hunt them down one by one. To me, there's two ways of surviving that kind of world, where you either blend in and be so docile that you cannot be seen, or you either become really, really strong that you can defeat everyone in one snap of your fingers and stuff, like, like Thanos snap. And I think Ivar, his dad knows that Lylle cannot be the latter. He's a soft boy, as you said. That's why he's the best boy as well. He cannot be raised in that kind of to be that cruel person. But if he cannot survive that way, he has to survive in other ways. That he has to understand how to behave and be, docile and under the radar and stuff. But despite that, Quill, he's not that innocent as well. There is some thoughts of violence, like, how he reacts when his sister got killed and stuff. He's kind of like fine with that. So there's a lot of facets to the guy as well.
It does remind me of a kitty. You know how they are in the beginning when you go try to pet them and they're scared and they run away. But eventually they warm up to you and you build that connection and that bond. Definitely see that correlation over there.
Exactly.
I just go.
I know,
Go say it.
that's it. I'm only saying that. Sorry.
So I just wanted to mention how cute he was when we first meet him, and he's like, well, yeah, it's weird to be in a room with a girl, like to be roommates, and if you need to change, I'll just cover myself with the bed sheets. And I'm like, oh no, you're so cute. How? So I love this. I love the whole dynamic between Lylle and the main character. Just so freaking cute.
I'm so happy to hear that.
And of course, I have to ask you, do you have a favorite love interest? Or at least one you had the most fun writing?
To be honest, Quill is my favorite bachelor because, again, he's based on my own best friend, which is basically the epitome of chaos and anarchy. And the way he talks is kind of similar to my friend. So I just have to imagine what my friend would say. So he's easier to write. But the most fun to write was definitely Thane, because I basically just let him do what he wants, write up what he would do, and see where that takes me. So I didn't have a story arc built up like the others I did, but his was like full on, just go on ahead and be yourself.
I wonder if your friends played the game.
Yeah.
Like the characters are based on. Yeah?
Yeah.
You did?
Then
Did they like it?
Yeah, they liked it. I asked permission, of course, and they were like, "Go ahead." But they knew I was gonna make it based on them.
Did they recognize themselves, the characters, perhaps?
Yes, they did, actually, without me pointing
For
it out.
sure. Okay, that's interesting. So I'd like to ask about the choices, right? So the romance in Bewitching Sinners feels pretty straightforward, and it does matter what choices you make. The relationship can change basically and take a different turn. How does the choice system work and in building intimacy between characters?
So for Bewitching Sinners, or BS, I like to shorten it, I actually use the choices and event flags more to define what happens in the relationship instead of affection point. So if a particular choice is chosen, then it might trigger, the next relationship event. But that is why some people may have the same amount of affection points, but can have very different experiences with the same route. For example, Arshem's route is actually very branching. You can have a very tame, innocent love, and at the same time, you can have like a very fondling in public, pinned to the bed kind of love. A very different dynamic depending on the choices you make when you interact with him. On the flip side, for example, with Thane and Quill, Thane's relationship is very based on the main story. So that's why a lot of players use my guide to approach him, because he is harder to get. And of course, Quill, if you kind of like chose the wrong answers in the main story, his relationship will actually stop and only won't let you become lovers and only as friends. So yeah, the choices definitely have more weight here.
I
I'm still cracking up. I'm sorry. I just have to mention this. I totally didn't notice that the abbreviation for Bewitching Sinners in short is BS.
Yes, it is. It's
I'm sorry.
bullshit.
I can't. That's the only thing I was thinking about this whole time.
It is.
How did I not see that? Oh my gosh. Sorry, lovers.
No, that's actually the main point. I have a lot of jokes in this the Bewitching Sinners. The first thing I remember when I was making, I have no idea what I'm going to name this project. Let's call it bullshit. OPS. Okay, that works.
Genius. Truly, truly genius.
I actually wanted to ask something about the choice system. Can you romance all of the characters at once? Like, can you be in a relationship with all of them? Like, me, the completionist.
Yeah, it's one run. Yeah.
Build a harem.
Sadly, no. I did make it so you can like experience their dates and relationship to the end of their route. So like, you can befriend them all at once and experience their love events to a certain point. But you can't experience all their love events at the same time. If you date one person, they're gonna like, oh, you dated this guy. Oh, okay, then it's fine. Have a good relationship.
I'm not interested anymore.
they're not interested. More like, that's my friend. You're dating my friend. I respect my friend and you. So you chose that one. I lose. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so they have some moral. How to say it? Like,
Monogamy? I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly what I actually wanted to say, because when I met Quill, and he is so open about stuff, just telling you that he has someone tied up to his bed waiting, and like, okay, he felt like a character that he wouldn't a character that wouldn't mind you going out with other characters as well. He was like
I have like this kind of like mindset that they're okay with dating, but once you go with official with someone, they're like, oh, okay, you're official, you're no longer in the market. I feel like they're fine with the dating aspect, even like just very very open about that. But once you've gone official, even if it's just a boyfriend girlfriend, and you're like, nah, okay, bye bye. Especially they're all friends, so they don't want to step on each other's toes and stuff.
Yes, understandable. This is nice. Like, it's very cool to have friends like that in real life as well. So
wait, please, I want to add something. By the way, Quill, I think, is not exactly what he seems,
Yeah.
so maybe don't judge the book by its cover too early. Is all I'm gonna say, because I kind of don't feel like spoiling too much, but nothing is as it seems,
He may say something, but not really. Yeah, then you have to discover that. Oh, but you can actually kiss them all actually on the same playthrough at least once, and I've experienced that. But you cannot become official with all of them at once. Yeah, that's the best way to explain the monogamy aspect, I guess.
Yes.
okay.
Sorry, you can go on. I just wanted to throw that in there because, like, I felt like people need. Oh,
So we talked a lot about the love interest, but I'm actually interested in Thea as a character and their relationship with the main character. So it's an interesting dynamic in the story, because in the real world you lose your sister, but then you go to this other world, and then you have your sister again, but it's not really your sister, it's your other used sister, and it's very very complex. And I want to ask you, what was your approach to writing this complex relationship?
So real personal, but my parents were actually usually busy or usually in different cities when I was a kid. So I was mostly raised with my big brother, who's 8 years older than me. So to me, the sibling relationship is very sacred, I guess. So in my mind, like, if I have to, one day become in Palmier's shoes, like I got sucked into the world, what would make me stay in a world that's designed to kill me, basically? That, there's no benefit for me to be there, actually. I mean, I could find hot guys in my own world. I don't really have to stay here where everything is trying to, kill or murder or whatever. But if I want to see, my brother again, for example, then I would, do anything in this world or the other world for, that version of my brother and the version of me to have their own happy ending, especially if I lost mine. So that's my kind of like my way of thinking, that MC would do this for, do everything they did for the alternate Palmier, even risking their lives just to wake them up, just only to see the happy ending where both his, the siblings can be with each other because he's lost his.
That's so nice. That's so nice. Like wanting to have a happy end for another person that's not you, even though you recognize Thea as your own sister as well. So it must be hard for the character to do that.
The goal for me changed immediately when it was about a sister bond. I have a sibling and I have a sister, so I couldn't imagine this just happening to me. I think that even my main goal was to bring Palmier's sister from that world back to life no matter what. I was like, okay, ultimately, sure, I would love to interact with the guys, romance them and everything, but I definitely had another motive as well to get to the ending where try my best to get to that ending where I bring her back, basically. So yeah, I think it was a very strong emotional point, basically, is what I'm saying. It was very well thought out. So thank you.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, this transition is a bit interesting. We're gonna talk a bit about the DOC. We went from deceased sister to let's talk about that teamy DOC, shall we?
Okay, we went a little bit deep,
It was so wholesome now, so
always an emotional roller coaster here. So no, about the DOC. This took things, as I mentioned, to a spicier level. What was the thought process behind creating this expansion? Was it because you just knew that people were going to want more? Or did you just, out of the good of your heart, you just decided to give us this beautiful piece of artwork?
I guess I was kind of like more curious because I don't know, a lot of people, I don't know, like in the gaming community, be like, if you want to get rich quick, add spicy content or something. And I was like, I just am curious about it. And I also want to add a little bit more about, Ivar a bit. There's an additional event there as well. And I also want to show, I guess, how they love in many ways. But
in many different poses.
Yeah, in different poses.
Yeah.
Because that's also...
I feel like I missed something here, okay? Like I never checked the DLC and now I feel like I missed out.
You should.
Well,
if you want to.
This is for a particular sort of audience that are not younger, if you understand what I mean.
Yes, okay, I get it.
All of the wild fantasies that you would have liked to, wilder fantasies that you would have liked to have in the main game, you have in the DOC. And I would just say for anyone curious, they can check it out. Don't want to get canceled.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah.
Man, it was just
I bet your community is happy. Like,
they want more. And I was like, I don't know if I want more.
Yes. More. It is never enough, you see. This just has to be a monthly thing at this point. Can you just every month, please, like subscriptions for the thing?
Okay, we're going other ways. No.
Sorry.
Let's just not deep there. Go deep there. Oh no. Okay. Let's get serious. And I wanted to mention that there's one thing that stood out to me in this game. It's not just a visual novel. It has the dating mini games. Me personally, didn't manage to understand how they actually work. So can you please tell us a little bit more about this mechanic? How does it work?
Sorry about that. Also, in the explanation in game was not clear enough. Sorry. But basically, you can talk, give, or touch the bachelors as you like. So there's three options when you have like a dating minigame. You can talk to them and give them something, or touch them. And the talking points, they're kind of like the topics available for you to talk with. The bachelors, you can find them when you explore the world and stuff. So sometimes, NPCs will be talking about certain topics, and you're like, oh, I can talk about that with with Bachelor A or something, with Quill or something. And then there's gifts. Well, you can buy or craft those. You can buy them from the shop or craft them from the trick store and stuff, and then give them to the bachelors. And there's the touching. Touching, I set basically a lot of zones in the character sprites. You can touch whatever they like or don't like. You get three tries to make your move in the game, in the date. You can touch them, give, or talk to them. And each bachelor have their own love language, and each action will accumulate points for the date. So depending on the total points you have in that date, then it'll be a good date or a bad date. You can see if it's good or bad by the hearts. When you click when they touch the bachelors, for example, the heart will glow red, pinkish if they like it, and you will have a heartbreak icon and in a blue color if you touch them in the places they don't like. And if they have a smiley face in the date, then that's a good date. And then the affection points will result in how good of a date that is. So it's a big smiley face and it's at 5 points. If it's a normal, it's kind of like you just add one. If it's a frowny face, it's actually negative points to the affection points.
Well, why does Thane never like anything? No matter where I touch him.
Same. Oh, Thane is very hard to. He doesn't like to be touching his hair. He doesn't like to. Yeah.
Oh.
He likes gifts. He's the hardest to date. And he's.
Oh, I think I just realized what you mean by that then.
So everyone has
totally
Arshem is very touchable. You can touch him anywhere, he'll be fine with it. Quill, you have to talk. Talk is he likes anything, any topic. Thane likes gifts. So if you're having a struggle, it's probably because But once you date, he likes to be touched.
Once you find a dine and what was the thing? Find dine or something like that. Wine and dine him. Yes, that's it. Once you wine and dine him, I guess it's allowed.
Yeah, if you become like lovers, they'll be fine with like you can touch me anywhere, baby. That kind of like.
Oh, this is just too good. I can't. Okay, sorry. Since we're on some mechanics, I'd love to touch on side quests and crafting. I think that was a very fun experience to just be able to go around and find errands that you can do, and people that needed some help from you. And in the meantime, you also get lore once you just, explore. I think that's great. But let me not forget to tell everyone it is definitely worth it to explore, to go around, just find out information, because that does help you later on in your conversations with the characters. Some choices are not going to be available if you don't explore, and I would have loved to know that beforehand, that it was worth it, and it definitely paid off. I think I did replay a few times just because I wanted to find out more story and lore, as I mentioned. So, but sorry, going back to the side quests and crafting, how'd you decide to include this particular mechanic?
So I have the attention span of a pigeon, so I wanted to make like a game. I have a very short attention span, to be honest. So I wanted to make the game interactive to keep stimulating the player, and also kind of like want them to experience the world more. That's why I have a lot of like map exploration, crafting, and quests, as it seems the best way to do that and to let the players, kind of like sink into the world. Like how they talk, how they mingle with each other, kind of like the odd requests. There's a very lot of blackmailing and backstabbing amongst the school, and I think that's kind of like, put you in the world more.
Yes, I agree.
Mhm.
I agree. It does.
And also those
Gives me
quests
a
kind of
good
like this
understanding.
have a result in the actual main story game. So I really want you to explore with the thought of there's actually some consequences for your actions even when you're idling by and exploring.
Yes, I love that, by the way, when you just talk with random people and they give you new topics to talk about. I was like, okay, this is so nice. It's not just a random exploring of the world, it actually has some things that it adds to the story. It's amazing.
I'm glad, I'm glad.
Something that I think is even more amazing is the fact that you mentioned you developed this solo. Are you kidding me? It's incredible considering just the scope of this game. One person doing this. Usually it's, a team of a few people. So it's really commendable. I think great.
Thank you.
Um could you share some behind the scenes stories with us during this process of development? Any fun or perhaps challenging moments that come to mind?
For behind the scenes stories, I think and I can share is actually I took 2 months off just to finish Baldur's Gate 3. I know that's stupid.
It's not
but,
stupid.
I remember rushing.
It is not.
I remember like I need 2 months of full playing Baldur's Gate 3, then I can focus on my work. I just remember that.
You deserve that, Queen. You deserve that.
I need to ask you now, who was your favorite character from Baldur's Gate? Is it Astarion?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Astarion and God's favorite princess Shadowheart, of course. Those were my two favorite.
Who? Excuse me, I didn't get you.
Shadowheart.
Yes. Oh, I cried so much on her story arc. You have no idea. In the beginning, like, sorry, I'm gonna go in a little story time here. So we started playing Baldur's Gate with my boyfriend on a split screen, and I wanted to date Astarion so bad, and he hated him like so much. He's like, "Oh, you stupid vampire boyfriend, we're not going to do that." Yada yada yada. And then the Shadowheart story comes, and he's like, "Oh, so invested in it." Like, come on, this girl, she's so annoying. I don't wanna get involved in that thing. But then you learn the whole story around her family and everything that happens, and you end up crying in the end. They're like, okay, I understand everything.
Yeah, I totally understand. I really love both of their roots because of the. I didn't expect that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I took like 2 months off to fully play that, and then like when also like the interesting challenging moments was like I make the webtoon intro, which you can look a lot when you're playing as the male one. That webtoon intro took me like 7 days straight to make because I was submitting that for a competition. That it was actually 60 panels long, but because in the game I have to cut it, so it's not too long. So that's an interesting little fact, I guess.
It is. And you mentioned the webcomic panels and everything, so I need to actually ask you. So Bewitching Sinner was originally inspired by a webcomic you made, right?
I was working on it, yeah.
So how did the transition happen? How did you manage to turn that into a game, like a visual novel?
So like there was a webtoon call to action contents, and I enrolled that with BS being the project in mind, and Quill was actually the MC of that, and then Palmier was the love interest. But unfortunately, I lost the competition, so I might as well like use this webtoon for other things. So that's the end.
You made the best
You
out of the
won our
situation.
hearts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Speaking of the webcomics, the art really helped here. You create so much enchanting art. I can't. It was just the POVs, the different POVs, right? The comic panels, the visual effects, and everything was absolutely stunning, and I loved it. It was just so visually abundant. Usually, I am used to having it just seeing just backgrounds, the normal backgrounds, and maybe occasionally some CG or an additional art in games. But this one just had so many different POVs, you're going up the stairs, right? And then all of a sudden you get a POV on the side of you going up the stairs with Quill, and you see where you're placed and where Quill is placed. Just as an example, because I don't want to spoil anything, I'm talking about the beginning of the game. I was like, oh my god, I'm getting so many POVs. And then you meet Arshem, and then you see him throwing flames and using his magic on the field and them exploding. And I was just so happy. I was like, I'm happy, thank you. This is truly what I wanted. I do read a lot of webtoons, manga, and so all of that content, hence why I also like playing visual novels. But I never experienced such a combination before where I get this much visuals and this much art. It was really nice. Um, there is a beauty in showing art sometimes. It's nice to try to imagine how things might look, right? But also there's a beauty to showing the different perspectives in art. At least with this piece, it really helped me build up the world in my head, and I feel like I know where everything is at. So if you drop me in the middle of it, I think I can find my way around just easily. And thank you for creating this. Honestly, thank you for not giving up, even though you mentioned it and when. Thank you for just making this visual novel.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you liked it. I did use a 3D asset, so that's why you kind of get a grander scape of where you are. I really want to have that feeling as well. You're really in that world. So I'm really happy that you felt that way.
Did it take a very long time to kind of make it? Because, I assume it takes a lot of time to just at least draw the different POVs and stuff.
So, like, the base game took about 18 months, so 1.5 years. That includes the 2 months I played Baldur's Gate. So, technically, it's 16 months. But then it took another 2 months or so to create the DLC and polishing the Bewitching Sinners because there was a lot of typos and such. I'm not a native English speaker, so it was bound to happen to have people pointed out the errors. But I'm really happy that a lot of players helped me fix the bugs and fix the grammar as well. I'm really happy, thankful for them.
So does this mean that maybe after another 18 months we can perhaps await another similar game from you?
Well, I do have something in mind later for October, but we're gonna go with that later.
Okay. And just as a note for everyone, if you haven't played the game with the male character, I highly recommend diving into it with it because it's a new experience. You understand what I mean. I think I connected a few dots when I played with it. I also really liked that it wasn't exactly the same because, it's giving you incentive to try out playing the game in different ways, right? I know some people will not agree with my opinion, and I'm sorry about that, but I think that it was a good thing that you could experience the beginning at least in a bit of a different way and get a different vibe.
Yeah, I'm sorry as well for players who want the more similar experience for both characters, but I really want to differentiate the two because I feel it kind of odd as well just to have okay, you play as two different characters but have the same opening. I want to have a little bit of difference so there's a more replay value. But I am apologetic because the male character does have more art. It's because I told you the webtoon competition I did was them and having them as a male lead, in mind. So yeah, but there's a lot of less BL options in the market. So I guess this is just my contribution as well. Hello.
Also, life happens, honestly, and I personally try to be really understanding when it just comes to stuff like this because it is a lot of hard work, and I just wanted to see it from a different perspective, so to speak, right?
So even though some people were not too happy about this, most of the fan response has been wild. I've seen your pages. Players are deeply invested in the characters and the story. Were there any reactions that surprised you?
the love of Ivar definitely took me off guard. Like, to be honest, I sketched Ivar one time on a whim and then shelved him. I forgot for what he was designed for. But then I was making this game and like I can use him, sure, yeah. And then a lot of the Patreon backers and stuff like go wild over him. My Twitter usually has like a lot of like thirsty comments about him and such. Like I don't know what the appeal of this very unattainable and manipulative man is, but yeah, people like the bad red flags, I guess.
It's not only the bad red flags, it's the older idol thing, you know? It's a popular thing in visual novels, so he fits in this stereotype in a good way. I'm not sure if he's a dateable character in the game, but I believe that it could be nice there as well.
Would be nice. I see potential as well.
Maybe you can make a DLC about that, I don't know.
I do have something in the works, yes.
Okay, that's interesting.
Would that perhaps be a potential sequel or additional DLC that you can tease about?
Yes, I actually have a few projects lined up. The closest one is for this Valentine. Like I'm gonna release some extra side story fics with some art. You know, it basically just depicts what happens with the bachelors when they go off into our world, and it's set in Valentine. They don't have Valentine in their world, so that's gonna be fun. And the profits from that will be used to help fund my VA hunting budget for Bewitching Sinners sequel, Royal Blood, which you can date Ivar there, and you can date the alternate universe Palmier there when he becomes a witch, when he or she becomes a witch god, basically. It's still in production, and I finished the main story script, but I just need to add the quests and map exploration and such, and do the art. But yeah, sequel will take place about 2 years after the first BS ending with the new MC. But you'll see recurring characters such as Ivar, Palmer, Via, Thane, and of course you meet a bunch of new characters as well. Since you finally explore the land who kicked out Thane, who exiled Thane, the Vampire Empire's mainland vortex.
Oh,
so that's the big one.
Okay, I am very excited about that. Like literally everything I thought about, you just mentioned it. So I will be waiting for this sequel, and we'll be talking again about that. And you mentioned about the Valentine's Day DLC or thing.
It's not a DLC. It's just a collection of stories, I guess, because to make a DLC, I don't have time for that, sadly. But I wanted to have a compilation of short stories for you guys to read and stuff, with art and stuff. So it's kind of like a mini novel, I guess.
Well, it can count for a DLC, just a small one, I guess. Considering that, and before our conversation here on the podcast, you sent us some very interesting, exclusive sneak peeks. And I believe that one of them is exactly from this Valentine extra stories. Can we comment on that?
Sure.
So on the first one, we can see Lylle all covered with chocolate. So what's going on there?
So, like I said, the boys don't know Valentine. They have no concept of it back in Ignia. So they really all have a different perception of what you're supposed to do in Valentine, but they all want to do what they think is best. Lylle will have a little bit of surprise for you from what he understood from his daycare children that he works with in our world. And let's just say that doesn't work as well as he thought it would. That potion brewing might be easier than cooking.
But he looks incredibly cute on that CG, amazing. And the second thing we have here is a little sneak peek of, I think, the sequel, right?
That one is, yes, that's the current UI design for Bewitching Sinners Royal Blood. I just wanted something really, really flashy. There's a term in the webtoon industry called shimmering splendid I forgot what is the last part is, but basically it's when you make something very very sparkly, shimmering, splendid. It's you call it like that because it's so like over the top and very fancy for no reason at all. That's kind of like the yeah, that's the overall vibe I want to do in the royal blood because it's all about royals and all about the vampire, sexy vampire lands.
Yeah.
It fits, it definitely
It's
fits, I think.
absolutely gorgeous, by the way. I love it. It's some kind of a gothic, elvish, and rococo style of thing going on there. It's just absolutely
And everyone will
amazing.
have a different frame. Like there's a frame for Palmia, right, in the screenshot I sent you. But like everyone has a different frame depending on what nation they're from. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Wow, you did a lot of work on that. I can see. Amazing. And the next thing we have is some kind of a dress, I think.
Oh, that's a concept design for one of the MC dresses. This is still a concept design. So again, because I want the MC have a little bit of a two dresses that she will wear when she's going out and when she's not. I want to have like a very very flash fancy moment again, usually with all of birds, because I want her sigil to be birds. Well, Alexi, if you played the BS first one, there's a vampire lord named Alexi. He's is a dragon. So every vampire lord have their own sigil. So yeah.
This dress is absolutely gorgeous, by the way. I love it. I would love to have a dress like that. Like I would wear it totally.
The style does remind me a bit of the UI, by the way. I don't know why I'm getting that sort of vibe. Maybe because of there's the blue colors are kind of similar, and then the shapes also remind me of it.
Everything goes well together, definitely. And the last thing we have, I believe, is the last thing, is a CG with a lot of action going on. What you can tell us?
That's a bit of my personal project. It's called Rumor Has It. I actually got really far with the demo and art of it. It's a different project entirely, but I've been active about it in Patreon. But that's kind of like a still personal. I was originally going to post it in April, but after running things with my editor and playtesters, I'm like, nah, maybe not yet. So sadly, that's gonna be shelved for a bit. But the good thing about that, I guess, is BS Royal Blood is gonna be fast forward to October release, Halloween release, hopefully for demo at least.
Okay, as I said, we will be waiting for that. And I can see you have your hands full with a lot of stuff. Like you're making the sequel, you're making another game. You don't really sleep, do you?
No.
No, that was so honest. So cute. I love people who are so devoted to their dreams, to making the art they have in their heads come true, and some kind of a perfect game or just a piece of art. So thank you for all your efforts and everything you do for the genre.
Thank you.
And before we wrap up, for those who haven't played Bewitching Sinners, what's the one thing you'd say to convince them to give it a try?
To be honest, I'm not really good at marketing. I'm good at selling things. I'm not really good at selling things. I'm good at making them only. But I guess if you haven't tried the demo, just if you want something to make you a laugh and have a little bit of like a fantasy setting, I think you should try Bewitching Sinners. Like, have a little bit of Delulu moment, a little bit danger moment. If it's not your thing, it's totally understandable. But all I wanted to do is, spread the joy, spread some laughs, and spread some chaos with my characters. So as long as you had a fun time, I think, yeah. I hope you have a fun time, I guess.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Miss Zero. That's a wrap for today's episode. Bewitching Sinners is available now for anyone who's interested, and trust us, it, as mentioned, unforgettable.
And again, huge thanks to you, Miss Zero, for joining us today. And if you guys are curious about supporting future DLCs or getting extra content, be sure to check out her Patreon.
Thank you for listening, and bye-bye until next time.